same technique as number 8. Okay, now first let's learn how to shape the armholes, and that's number 8. So, as I introduced in the beginning of the video, armholes are curved lines, which can be achieved by a combination of binding off stitches and reducing stitches. In my last video, how to master 7 essential knitting stitches for beginners, I had a step-by-step tutorial for the both stitches. So if you just discovered this video tutorial, you can go to watch that tutorial and come back to learn how to shape the curves. What I'm doing here is I am demonstrating how to knit the front piece of a sweater, which will have 2 armholes, the left armhole and the right armhole. Now I'm starting to shape the right armhole. To shape the right armhole, first I'm gonna using the binding off stitch to bind off. To be exactly, I'm gonna bind off 3 stitches here. So it depends on the structure of your sweater as to how many stitches to bind off. Usually this is where the knitting patterns that you bought will tell you how many stitches to bind off. So the more fitted the sweater is, more stitches needed to be bind off, and the more oversized and the less. So here for demonstrating, I'm just binding off 3 stitches. Okay, after binding off 3 stitches, I'll keep knitting to finish this row. Okay, now I finished knitting this row. I'm gonna turn the swatch to the other side and start binding off the left armhole. Remember, you can only bind off from the beginning of the knitting the row, so we cannot binding off on this side, but that is okay. We need to turn to the other side to bind off, and here you will bind off from the purl side. Binding off from the purl side is the same as binding off from the knitting side. You just need to get the yarn out of the way when you're binding off, like here. So you put your yarn away and bind off. Because if you bind off like this, you can't, the yarn is gonna on your way. Hope that's clear. So same here, we're gonna bind off 3 stitches. Now we've bound off 3 stitches on this side. We're gonna keep purling to finish the row as what we did earlier. So just to finish this row, and we'll start a new row. Now we finished purling the row and we are turning the swatch on the knit side again, and on this new row we will start reducing stitches. So we will reduce 1 stitch on each side. So for this knit side, for this side, we're gonna reduce 1 stitch for the right armhole, and later we'll reduce 1 stitch for the left armhole. But now let's see. So first, like slipping off the first stitch, we don't knit. That's a common practice. So we needed 2 stitches, and we're gonna knit here the 3 and 4 stitches together. The reducing stitch method we learned in my last video tutorial. So yeah, so that means 1 stitch has been reduced on this row. So, and we're gonna keep knitting until we finish this row, and okay, now we finish this row. Again, we're turning the swatch to the other side, and we're working on the left armhole. And the same thing, this time we're gonna purl, and we slip the first stitch, which is a common practice again. So we purl one, and we're gonna purl the third and fourth stitches together. So reducing stitches technique, the basic one. Knit them together to reduce one stitch. That means on both sides we've reduced one stitch on both sides. And yeah, just to keep purling until we finish this row. Okay, now we finished knitting, purling the row, and you can see that a curve has been formed already. It's a combination of binding off stitch and reducing stitches. You can clearly see the curved lines, and for demonstrating purpose, I'm not gonna reduce more stitches for this swatch, because as long as how many stitches to bind off and how many stitches to reduce, it depends on the sweater, the fit of the sweater. Also, if you are following patterns, they will tell you. And but in a nutshell, it's just the curved lines are achieved by a combination of binding off stitches and reducing stitches. Basically, the more fitted the sweater is, more stitches need to be taken off. So here I'm just keep knitting and purling several rows to show you better how the curves look like. Okay, now I've knitted a couple of rows, and you can see the curve line is formed clearly here, and that's how the curves are done. Here it's very basic, so I'm just, since this is a beginner tutorial, I don't want to put too much information, jam too much information here. So this is basically how you achieve curves. Now you know. Great. Okay, let's keep on learning.